Okay, let's go ahead and dig into the history of life on Earth. This is coming from your text, The Living Earth, and we are in Unit 3. So let's just scroll down. Here we are, Unit 3, and there are 6 different concepts that we're going to look at here, starting with how life on Earth formed. Okay, and as you can see, after that, we'll talk about the development of Earth, plate tectonics, relative dating, evidence for evolution, and mechanisms for evolution. Okay, so we'll click on this. If you have already looked at your Explorer, you've noticed that there are 5 Explore pages. So we're going to go ahead and start with this first one here. The essential question: what are different scientific explanations for how and when life on Earth evolved? So let's go ahead and draw our Cornell note templates. Go ahead and put down your reference um, as far as where we're getting these notes from. Discovery Education, Living Earth, Unit 3, Concept 1, Explore 1. And go ahead and write that down, the essential question, and then tell me what you know, or tell me what you think, okay? And remember, do this before you take your notes, before you've listened to this lecture. Just right now, pause the video and tell me what you know or think. Okay, well, hopefully you took care of that. If you take a look at the left there, it says early Earth. We're going to go ahead and use that for Roman numeral 1. Go ahead and write that down. Early Earth and the solar system. They form approximately 4.5 billion years ago, BYA. The first picture you can see here, I tried to demonstrate the solar system. The solar system includes the sun and the planets. There's 4 rocky planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. They have are made of more dense material. So when the solar system expanded, the lighter materials were ejected further. Gases were ejected further out in distance. That's why most of the further planets are what we call gas giants: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Those are considered the gas giants. Okay. But that's not the point here. The point here is that they all formed at the same time. And as far as dating goes, we have evidence from radioactive decay, samples from comets, meteors, and the moon to help corroborate that, to help support this idea that the Earth is approximately 4.5 billion years ago, formed 4.5 billion years ago. Early on, as Earth was forming, a process called accretion, as you get mass that starts to accumulate, gravity is a force that exists when you have mass. The more mass you have, the more gravity starts to draw things towards it. So Earth was heating up as material was colliding, accreting with Earth. Meteors were bombarding it. You had radioactive decay going on, radioactive isotopes. Earth was a very hot place. Unlikely that life existed. And there was no crust, there was no land, there was no ocean. It was just, for all intents and purposes, you could think of it as a sea of magma. Okay. Now, ultimately, as time goes on, things cool down. Let's see if I can do this there. And as the Earth starts to cool down, you start to form a crust. Okay. As things cool down, you start to see steam that starts to form, vapors that start to form. And these, as temperatures cool down even further, they have the chance to condensate. And wherever you had low lying elevation areas, you could actually start to form bodies of water. Water starts to collect in those areas. You can kind of see we got this picture here that we're trying to use to demonstrate these ideas. Now, early on in Earth's history, the atmosphere had a lot of carbon dioxide, it had a lot of ammonia. We did not have an ozone layer per se, so the energy from the sun was able to split, especially the ammonia, and that produced our nitrogen gas. Remember, over 70% of the atmosphere is made of nitrogen gas, so that's a result of the splitting of ammonia. And hydrogen also was produced with the splitting. Okay, so the early atmosphere, you can see there, reacting with Earth's sunlight. Now, we really didn't have a whole lot of oxygen yet, so there was no real chance for producing uh, an atmosphere that would support life. Now, as we continue to go on here, your text talks about the formation of organic compounds, organic molecules. I think nucleic acids, think lipids, proteins, carbohydrates. Um, how does this stuff form? Early on in Earth's history, we really didn't have those things. All we had were inorganic compounds, right? So there's a lot of ideas about the what the Earth's atmosphere was like, what Earth was like early on. It was not a very hospitable place. It was a pretty violent place. Um, some people speculate that there was a tremendous amount of electrical activity. Think lightning, right? And that, along with the inorganic compounds, kind of creating this concentrated soup, if you will. The idea was that given enough time, mixing all these compounds around like a fancy chemistry experiment, it is possible that you could have created the precursors, the beginning compounds for life. Scientists have been doing this for a while now in labs. They've actually been trying to see if that hypothesis holds up, and they have been able to produce amino acids from inorganic compounds, adding enough energy to systems with inorganic compounds. So the hypothesis seems to be sound. Have we been able to produce life on our own yet? No, we have not. So again, this is still an area that we as humans are really actively trying to understand. If we did form life here on Earth, the idea is that um, you had to be able to form self-replicating molecules. They probably were RNA-based, ribonucleic acid-based organisms. In time, they would evolve into something more stable, a DNA-based, deoxyribonucleic acid-based organisms. There's other people who say perhaps life came from somewhere else. You know, um, when we go out to space, we make sure that we send spaceships out that are sterile. We don't want to have any human bacteria going out into space because we don't want um, to carry that out. We don't want to contaminate, say, the moon with an invasive bacteria. Well, could meteorites have carried invasive hitchhiking bacteria onto Earth? Maybe. Maybe. That would not answer the question of how life formed somewhere else in the universe, but that is a possibility. And so you'll read that in your text where they talk about that. Okay, so early evidence for life. The earliest fossils we do find are of what we call prokaryotic cells. These are cells that are, well, of course, they're very small because they're cells. Um, they don't have a nucleus inside the cell. You and I are cells. We have a nucleus, and inside the nucleus is our DNA. In prokaryotes, there is no nucleus. So the DNA material is just spread throughout the cytoplasm. Also, these early prokaryotes did not have any membrane-bound organelles to speak of. These prokaryotes, think bacteria, think archaea, especially the archaea. They've been shown to survive in very extreme environments. Down in the deepest parts of the ocean near thermal vents, where there's no sunshine, they've been able to survive doing, instead of photosynthesis, chemosynthesis, producing their energy from chemical compounds. So is that a possibility? Is that how life formed? Maybe, right? Ultimately, after that, and also kind of notice our timeline here. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going down my notes there. The fossil evidence, when we first see prokaryotic cells, we see that about 3.4 billion years ago. So think about that. From the formation of Earth at 4.5 billion years ago, we see the first single-celled organisms around 3.4 billion years ago. Okay. At 3 billion years, at 3 billion years ago, we see that photosynthesis, evidence for photosynthesis evolving on Earth is found. There's a particular type of prokaryote called cyano, because their color is cyan, kind of a purplish blue in reddish purple blue in nature. This is a bacteria, and these bacteria produce oxygen. So the idea is that they're probably responsible for producing much of the oxygen that's in Earth's atmosphere today. Not plants, but cyanobacteria, right? Okay. That was about 3 billion years ago. About 2 billion years ago, we see eukaryotes form. You are a eukaryote. Most multi-cellular organisms, your body's made of many cells, trillions of cells, so you are a eukaryote, right? They show up about 2 billion years ago. They have a nucleus, and inside the nucleus, we have DNA, and then we also find in the cytoplasm organelles. Just like in your body, you have different organs. Well, in cells, they have different organelles, small organs, right? That carry on a variety of functions inside the cell. Okay. There is some evidence to suggest that these eukaryotes formed by the combining of different prokaryotes. There's a theory called the endosymbiotic theory. It says that perhaps you had a host bacterium, an anaerobic bacteria, because remember before we had cyanobacteria, there was no oxygen. So you had to have bacteria that lived in environments without oxygen. An meaning without, and aerobic means without oxygen. So this theory says that you had these types of bacteria. They engulfed or took in other prokaryotes. And that is what we call symbiosis, when you have two different organisms working together. And this is a theory on how we went from single-celled to multiple-celled organisms. Is there evidence for this? There is actually compelling evidence. Inside plants, in the chloroplast, inside you, your mitochondria, which produces energy, you have DNA that's bacterial. Okay, I mean, you think of your cells and you think of your cells as having DNA, it's human, it comes from your parents. But inside the mitochondria organelles, we have, think of it as alien DNA. In this case, it's coming from bacteria. So the idea is that this is evidence of our very, very early history. We couldn't have done it without them. So that's the endosymbiotic theory there. Okay. Early eukaryotes were flat. Looking at number 1 here, disc-like. We have a few fossils, but I want to stress the word only a few fossils that we've been able to find, but the ones that we have found, they do support this idea. And look at that. Here we are at 1.5 billion years ago. A lot of time has passed by. What do we have? Well, oxygen starts to increase. With oxygen increasing, you start to see a diversification of life. Um, Here it kind of gets a little messy. I had to cram some things in here. At 650 million years ago, small marine life starts to form. At 580 million years ago, bilateral symmetry. You are bilaterally symmetrical. You have right hand, right ear, right eye, left eye. You could draw a dividing line down the middle of your body and separate right from left, and they kind of look like mirror images. So, not all of life was like that early on. Bilateral symmetry develops around 580 million years ago. We start to see at 550 million years ago invertebrates and arthropods. Okay, invertebrates could be things like worms, for example, centipedes, arthropods, jointed legs, think spiders, things like that. At 500 million years ago, we get proto-amphibians, what will become amphibians. Land plants evolve. Here we go, letter E. Land plants evolve at 475 million years ago. Notice all in this clustered area here, I got this little red dot, and it's at 500 million years ago. We see the rapid diversification of animals. Eyes start to form, hard body parts start to form. This is called the Cambrian explosion. Most of the life forms that we see today, the basic categories formed during this time. Okay. Notice that we've shifted. We're no longer talking billions of years ago, BYA. We're talking about MYA, millions of years ago. And the story just kind of gets more interesting. 400 million years ago, plants with seeds evolve. When do flowers show up? They show up at approximately 130 million years ago. Notice between that plants with seeds and plants with flowers, you have amphibians show up, dinosaurs show up, mammals show up, birds show up, primates. Think of gorillas and orangutans and chimpanzees. 65 million years ago. When do the early humans show up? 2.5 million years ago. When do the modern humans show up? About 300,000 years ago. So, and this kind of parallels the text and this timeline, especially these last few dates that I've been giving you here, are coming from this bullet list down at the bottom. Okay. And so what we did is we tried to put this into something that looks like a timeline, right? It's not to scale, but it is chronological. I tried to at least put it as chronologically in order as possible. Okay, well, I think that does it for the notes. So let's just kind of make sure that you were able to see everything. Okay, so I'm just kind of going through and making sure, in case you needed to go through the whole video, you could see all the text. Okay, and I think we did it. So, all right, we're just going to take you right back to the bottom in here. Make sure you had all those. And let's just go ahead and write ourselves a summary sentence now. Or not a sentence, let's try a summary paragraph. Okay, so here we go. Summary paragraph. And we'll talk to you soon. All right, take care.